Viewer Friday is back again. Yo, what is up, Crocs and Clan members, Poke fans, and others who will some fun this video? I'm SoresanCrockxen, and today's Viewer Friday actually comes from an anonymous person who refused to, or they didn't, I don't know if it's a girl or a guy. They didn't want me to, say who it was. But basically what they asked for is that before the release of Sun and Moon, which is about like 2 months away, a month away, somewhere around there, they wanted me to talk about my top 10 favorite starters. And like, I was gonna do that, but I actually want to change it up a little bit. I want to kind of follow in the footsteps of Tamashi when she made her top 10 starters, where she basically ranked them by generations. But this list will not include the Gen 7 starters because what the fuck is that? No, I'm just kidding. Because they're too new, and honestly speaking, they're not even fully evolved yet, so I don't know what the hell their final forms look like. So I can't really judge them off for that. Now for this list, what I'm essentially going to be doing is I'm actually going to be using 3 different criteria to judge and determine where these Pokemon go, or where each generation is going to land. For one, I'm going to talk about the designs of each part, or at least as much as I can of each individual in that starter line. I'm going to be using the anime as a reference because, as most of you guys know, I do watch the anime extensively. And I'm also going to be talking about the competitive side of things because I am a competitive battler. So that also influences sometimes how much I like a Pokemon or not. So without further ado, let's get started with the list. Coming in last place is the Kalos starters. Wait, it's not Gen 4? What? I know, I bash Gen 4 all the freaking time, alright? Just be happy about it, okay? So anyways, back to the topic. Gen 6 just really has a lot going against it. Before the release of X and Y, I wasn't particularly fond of any of these starters. I was Team Fennekin by the time the games came out, with Chespin at a very close second. The problem with these three, and one of the main reasons it's on the bottom, is the Froakie line. I never liked the thing, and I wouldn't go past saying I hate Greninja based on design alone. But remember that I'm judging these guys with 3 criteria in mind, and the only one that gets a pass in this very stage, at least for me, is the Fennekin line. Unfortunately, the other 2 criteria didn't do too well for the Kalos starters due to my utter distaste of the Fennekin line because of Serena, as well as the lack of focus on Chespin with Clemont, all culminating with an awful Greninja was done, and the saga didn't help any of these 3. On the competitive aspect, while yes, Greninja is in Ubers, I was one of the few people that was actually against the ban, since I generally see him as a glass cannon that has a lot of things that can deal with it if prepped properly. Delphox is kind of niche and competitive. You can run a Scarf spec set to try to do as much damage, but because of how low some of his other stats are, it sits really low in the RU tier and doesn't really get a lot of love. Chestnut, realistically speaking, is the only one that can give a pass in this regard because it does its job well as a supporting tank that can set up hazards as well as just come in on any physical attacker it wants, and can also hit it back with a powerful Seed Bomb or a Hammer Arm. Next up in number 5 is the Sinnoh starters. Now hear me out before you scream out bias. I will admit most of the fault of these guys does fall on the anime, but we'll get to that in a sec. Of the 3, I was always Team Piplup as it was an adorable little penguin. In terms of looks, all 3 are pretty decent all the way through, but I just could never really evolve my Piplup. Heck, I remember during my playthrough of Platinum, I went the whole game without evolving. Now the anime, like I said, is really what hurts this trio. The Turtwig line was always my least favorite of the 3, and the anime didn't really help in any way, since the moment Ash's Turtwig evolved, it became the most useless Pokemon in the entire park. While I don't hate it as much as the Greninja saga, Chimchar had its own share of problems. While I did enjoy the connection between Ash and Paul and how that helped it with the storyline, it caused the same problem as Greninja did in Gen 6, where it takes the spotlight over everyone else. The Piplup line wasn't helped either, as you only had a focus on Piplup and not much on its evolution. I will say the competitive aspect is what put these guys over the Gen 6, as all 3 have different roles and uses in their respective tiers, with a variety of options making them hard to predict what they will bring to the table. What with the Torterra being a nice tank that can set up rocks and take some Leech Seed and just sit there and stall, or can come in with a Choice Band set and just wreck house. Infernape is nice in the UU tier, able to be a mixed attacker, a suicide lead, a physical attacker, or a special attacker that can come in and just destroy everything. And obviously Empoleon being a good defogger in the RU tier actually is useful enough to be used in UU. Also has access to the spec set, which does a lot of damage. There's even the I think it's called the Salad Berry set, which is when you get low enough HP, it boosts your special attack stat. You usually go for Substitute to get to Torrent, and then you have a Torrent boosted, special attack raised, Hydro Pump coming to the face. Taking the number 4 spot is the Unova starters. Now I always give a lot of praise to the Gen 5 games, so one thing I always bring up is the fact that I wasn't generally too fond of the Pokemon designs in the region. The starters also fell into that category, but with the Snivy line being the only one I like design-wise, which did give them a slight edge over the Gen 4 starters, since I like the whole line more than just Piplup, which is my favorite of the three. Now I will say the anime was kind of a mixed bag when it came to ranking these guys. Oshawott was comic relief that I generally didn't care for, and I can't say I remember much of Dewott. The only other thing is the Samurott that belonged to Cameron, but that was way late in the show. The Tepig line never did much as they tried to do a copy-paste of previous Fire starters with having a horrible trainer before meeting Ash, and Ember was just not there. The Snivy line got more love though, what with Trip getting a Snivy to start his journey and showed every stage of the line, even going as far as having a broken acid period near the end. In terms of competitive, honestly, Samurott isn't worth a second glance, and to be honest, it's mostly superior for me here due to its contrary ability, making it a huge threat in the scene. Ember also has things that can help it, especially due to its ability to Reckless, giving it more powerful moves with Wild Charge, Flare Blitz, as well as Head Smash, I think is what the other one is. They all do a lot more damage thanks to Reckless, and if you slap on a Choice Band, that thing is going to be taking down all the walls that are in its way. In the number 3 spot, we have the JoJo starters. Now honestly, this one was kind of hard to pick between this and the number 2 choice, but I went with the JoJo starters here for one reason, the Chikorita line. I know some of you will call me a hater, but honestly, I never really cared. Design-wise, it never really wowed me, which sucks because it looks similarly to one of my favorite dinosaurs. The Cyndaquil line is obviously my favorite, as I've stated on multiple occasions that Cyndaquil is always vying for first place of my all-time starters. Totodile and its evolutions are pretty cool too. In the anime, Totodile was given the role of a comedic effect, but unlike Oshawott in Gen 5, it actually uses quirkiness in battle for some fun interactions. I can't really remember at the top of my head if it's other forms being in the show, which should bring them down, but Totodile just did such a fantastic job I really can't. Cyndaquil was a struggling battle in the beginning as it needed some time to fire up, which did show an amazing dynamic. Also, Jimmy's, aka Gold Typhlosion, was a boss in Chrono. As for the Chikorita line, the jealousy of Pikachu stuff was kind of weird to see, on top of the fact that there was this potential crush that Bayleaf had, which made it a little uncomfortable. The only Meganium I remember was Jackson's, but the only thing I remember from it was that it was a dick, especially in its battle against Bulbasaur. Competitive-wise, the only ones that really matter are Feraligatr and Typhlosion. While Meganium does have a niche role in the PU tier as a support mon, it's too weak to do many other things, and its hidden ability doesn't really benefit it. Also, Bayleaf fucked me over in the Soling. Enough said. Actually, after the release of hidden abilities, Feraligatr actually got the best deal with the Sheer Force. What with its varied move pool, access to Dragon Dance, it's prepared for a sweep. Typhlosion, obviously a good special sweeper with access to Eruption, as well as the Mind Game due to the Flash Fire, makes it really good. Also, it honestly put in most of the work on my team this season in the Elysian League, so honestly, that just puts it up. At the number 2 spot, we have the Kanto starters. You're just a Gen 1er, blah 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 blah. Let me explain before you comment anything of the sort, okay? I started playing the games in Generation 1, so obviously I've had a long time to get attached to these guys, and with the introduction of their Megas in Generation 6, it really made it a lot better. Now, as I said in previous pick, it was a toss-up between this and Generation 2, as I absolutely despise Zard X, but it does have things over Meganium, so there you go. So design-wise, all 3 starters I think look great. The Charmander line obviously being my favorite of the 3, followed by the Squirtle line and ending with the Bulbasaur line. I still like the designs all the way through their evolutions, except maybe Ivysaur, but it's still not bad. In the anime, we all remember Ash's Charmander in his journey, and while I think the transition from Charmeleon to Charizard was kind of rushed, Charizard still proved to be a pain. It was a nice art dedicated to it. I am a little upset that after they became the best of buds, it just left for a while, but it was still a nice touch. Squirtle was a boss, and Maze was just adorable. Wartortle, the only one I remember much of was Maze, which was still really cool, and obviously Gary's powerful ass Blastoise, as well as Tierno's dancing one in Gen 6 that shows differences in the same species. Bulbasaur was awesome, as its determination to not evolve was the first, and I think it's the only time we've seen a mon stopping its own evolution. I don't remember much of Ivysaur except for Shauna's, but because of the way Gen 6 was handled, we didn't get to see much of it. As for Venusaur, Maze got you covered with her talented beast in content. In terms of competitive, they're all viable. Blastoise can be a tank or a super hard hitter with its Mega Launcher ability. It's also one of the best spinners in the game. Venusaur can be anything you need it to be, physical, special, or defensive. His hidden ability in regular form can be a powerful sweeper, and his Mega is a tank either physically or especially depending on the role you need it to fill. In terms of Charizard, while his regular form is pretty lackluster, it does have access to 2 amazing Mega forms, which create a sort of mind game to your opponent to guess which form you have. Plus, both can be run in either offense, physical or special, which makes it even harder for your opponent. Overall, the Gen 1 starters are a solid bunch, but obviously, one trio beats them all. Finally, my number 1 pick is obviously the last set, which is the Hoenn starter. As many of you should know by now, Generation 3 is my favorite in the series, and Hoenn is actually my favorite region. One of the main reasons is the starter Pokemon. I honestly can't say I dislike any of the 3 in any of the evolutionary stages. All 3 look amazing from start to finish. In the anime, May's Torchic's growth was nice, and she was the first in the group that wasn't Ash to get a starter. It also helped that we got to see 2 different sides of Blaziken, what with Harrison and Johto League being a powerhouse, and May's being more focused on content. Then of course you have Ash's Trico and his journey. The evolution arc from Grovyle to Sceptile was cleverly executed, and it made the payoff much better. You can also throw Shota's in there for having a badass Mega Evolution. As for the Mudkip line, well, we did have Brock's derpy little sidekick, but the true testament of a Swampert was Dome Ace Tuckers. This man was acting just like a team player, covering his partner and using combinations, which was truly a masterpiece. In terms of competitive, well, they're all pretty viable. Sceptile being a fast special attacker that can throw your opponents off by bringing a Sorzan set. Blaziken is being a speed boosting physical attacker, banned to the Ubers tier because of how freaking broken it is, and Swampert that can be either a defensive wall or a bulky offensive beat. Either way, all 3 shine in their respective areas. Mega Sceptile even helped me during the most recent season of the Elysian League and was a valuable ally. I've used all 3 in competitive play with Blaziken in the leads because I hate Ubers! Ugh! But anyways, I have fond memories with these guys. If I ever play a fan game that gives me the opportunity to pick a starter from any of the region, chances are I'm picking one of these guys, and that's just me. Praise be Generation 3. Well guys, that was my list ranking the starters by generation in terms of my least favorites, my favorites. Hope you guys enjoyed. As always, these are my opinions. This is how I feel towards these starters, okay? They're not everybody else's. Plus the fact that I've mixed in 3 different things to judge them doesn't really help a lot of the times because usually people go after one specific situation or one specific reason for liking these starters. But feel free to leave your list in the comments below. You can do them by actually your top 10 favorite starters individually, or you can do what I did, which is by generations. Leave them in the comments down below, or make a video response. I know that those things aren't really a thing, but if you do make a video, feel free to send it to me, and I will gladly watch it, and even give it a like, or whatever like that. But anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I have been SoresanCrockxen, and I will see you guys in future videos.